Hi, I'm Derek Downey, and welcome to Tarot and Human Development, where I'm exploring self-development and the Western mystery tradition. In this video, I will be reading my debut blog post, Aries and Tarot Cards, 3 new concepts to set your readings on fire. About halfway through the video, I will get into my own personal interpretations of each tarot card, so if you would like to just skip to that, I will have the timestamps for each card in the description. Also, if you're interested in downloading my free one-page guide to all 78 tarot cards, I will have a link to that in the description as well. So, without further ado, let's get started. According to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the following tarot cards represent Aries: the Emperor, Queen of Wands, 2 of Wands, which is Mars in Aries, 3 of Wands, which is the Sun in Aries, and 4 of Wands, which is Venus in Aries. In this article, I'm going to give some traditional ideas about Aries, then 3 new concepts I personally associate with Aries, and last I will give my personal interpretations of each tarot card. So let's get started with the traditional ideas about Aries. In her book, The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need, Joanna Martine Woolfolk describes Aries as, quote, active, energetic, excitable and impulsive, optimistic, open to change and new experiences. And that's on page 8. In his 5th lecture on astrotheology, Manly P. Hall describes Aries the Ram as representing the virtue of courage and the vice of aggression or combativeness. He said the true test of Aries is whether we can be strong yet kind. Instead of becoming aggressive like the ram, he said we must become like the Lamb of God, seemingly passive but actually powerful beyond all measure. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that it wasn't until researching this blog post that I realized that rams are just male sheep. That would make sense. I interpret this as the most effective way to cause change is through calm, conscious assertiveness, not angry, emotional outbursts. Teaching from an esoteric astrology standpoint, William Meader said in his blog and lecture at the Theosophical Society that the lower personality nature of Aries, with its traditional ruler of Mars, represents the warrior on the march. However, the soul nature, or the higher nature of Aries, with its higher ruler of Mercury, is associated with the will to initiate new and progressive forms, whether they be new physical forms or new mental forms, which we also call paradigm shifts. This is why Aries is such a powerful sign, because it takes a colossal amount of strength to change the course of the world. He also said that while Aquarius and Aries are both about initiating change, Aquarius is more about working with large groups of other human beings in order to cause the change, while Aries is more about dedication to the cause over anything else, saying, I'll do it myself if I have to. So now that I've touched on some traditional ideas, let's move on to the new concepts. Concept number 1, accepting the call to adventure. After analyzing mythologies throughout history and from around the world, Joseph Campbell discovered an underlying narrative pattern, which we typically refer to today as the hero's journey. And then I have a link to a hilarious Glove and Boots video about the hero's journey, so I will have all of the links that I use in this article in the description. Dan Harmon, creator and writer of shows like Rick and Morty and Community, uses his own simplified version of the hero's journey, which he calls the story circle. The idea of the hero's journey boils down to this. A protagonist wants something, So they journey from the known world into an unknown world to get the thing and bring it back. A side note here is an interesting and illuminating characteristic of this model is that since humans are social creatures, the hero must always return back to the tribe with the treasure to improve the lives of the entire group instead of just keeping it for themselves. Kind of an insight into human nature there. In the hero's journey, the call to adventure happens when an external force invites the protagonist to embark on the adventure. In Harry Potter, it is when Harry receives the letters from Hogwarts. In The Lord of the Rings, it is when Gandalf asks Frodo to take the ring out of the Shire. In Star Wars, it is when Obi-Wan Kenobi invites Luke Skywalker to come with him to Alderaan. Then we reach the stage of the journey called the refusal of the call. This is when the protagonist says something like, But, I'm no hero. I'm just an ordinary person living an ordinary life. I'm sorry, but I can't help you." Then the environment forces them into it, whether it's Hagrid arriving on his flying motorcycle or Luke Skywalker discovering that his aunt and uncle have been murdered. With all of this in mind, Aries can represent the strength you need to accept your call to adventure. Whenever an Aries tarot card comes up, ask yourself, is there a call to adventure happening right now? And am I refusing the call? Perhaps instead of an external person showing up on your doorstep and inviting you on an adventure, perhaps it's an internal voice whispering to you, you were meant to do this thing, and there's still time. Your call to adventure may seem like an outrageously impossible task, something totally beyond what you are currently capable of. And you're right. And according to the hero's journey, that's what makes you the perfect protagonist for this story. This brings me to concept number 2. Not how you start, but that you start. Then I have a quote by G.K. Chesterton that says, "Anything worth doing is worth doing badly." Aries season begins on March 21st, or 20th, this year, 2023. Aries season begins on March 21st, which is the first day of spring, or spring equinox. During spring, we see the slow rebirth of life around us after the cold, killing hardship of winter. Aries is associated with the will to initiate because spring initiates us back into the warmer seasons. When we initiate a brand new venture, we will probably suck at it. Psychologist Carol Dweck, famous for her influential research on growth and fixed mindsets, points out an incredibly magical word and mantra to keep in mind anytime you're beginning something new. And that's the word yet. I'm not a good artist. Yet. I'm not a good entrepreneur. Yet. I'm just not good at this thing that I'm feeling called to do. Yet. From a Kabbalistic view, esoteric author Dion Fortune said in her book, The Mystical Kabbalah, that the center Sephirah of Tifereth, which represents our higher self, or soul, or Christ or Buddha within, that this center Sephirah is symbolized by the divine child. This is because the Christ child does not spring like Minerva, full-armed from the head of God the Father, but starts as a small thing, humbly laid among the beasts, and not even housed in the inn with the humans. In other words, just as humans enter the world as a tiny, helpless baby, our soul does not enter this world as something complete, but rather something to be developed. And since writing this article, I'm actually listening to James Hillman's audiobook for The Soul's Code, and he talks all about the idea that we're not a child growing up, but rather we are our soul growing down into manifestation. So I think that relates here. Dion Fortune also said that initiation is the forcing house of evolution. In other words, evolution can happen to us or it can happen through us. Either we can passively wait for our environment to change enough that we are forced to evolve, or we can take initiative and consciously put ourselves into new environments that we know will force us to evolve. In order to embody the heroic spirit of Aries, we must start the journey even though we feel unprepared, because it is the journey itself that will prepare us. This brings me to the third new concept. Concept number 3, failure as goal, not death sentence. In their book, Go for No, authors Richard Fenton and Andrea Waltz said that people typically operate from a model of success and failure that looks like this. And in the model, you have the word me in the center. Then on one side, you have the word failure. And on the other side, you have the word success. In this model, we do everything we can to move toward success while moving away from failure. However, a better model looks like this. And in this model, you have the word me with arrows pointing to failure, and then arrows pointing from the word failure to the word success. So it goes me, failure, success. In their book, they said, and now this is all a quote from the book, I realized that failure was the halfway mark on the road to success. Most people get to the sign marked failure, and they figure they're heading in the wrong direction. So they turn around and head back home. They think that success must be back the other way, but it's not. It's straight ahead. Seth Godin summarized this idea with his quote, "If I fail more than you, I win." He also said on the Tim Ferriss podcast to not ask yourself, what would I do if I knew I could not fail? Instead, ask yourself, what would I do if I knew I would fail? What would be worth doing even if it doesn't work? Oftentimes, our fear of failure is actually a fear of social rejection, which is an ancient instinct bestowed upon us by evolution through our genes. Ivan Terrell, co-creator of the human givens theory, explains here why we developed this instinct. And then this whole part is a quote from one of his lectures he gave, which again I will have a link to in the description. Here's what he said. I mean, look at you. You're tasty meat for a hyena. You've got nothing to defend yourself with. You've got no claws. You haven't got big hairy hides that are half an inch thick. You can't run particularly fast. You're easy meat. So the only way we survive is by being a group animal and developing techniques for scaring off the wild beasts. Because if you band together in a large group, you look to a hyena or a lion like a large animal. If you were cast out of the tribe, that was a death sentence, effectively. Similarly, when we put a considerable amount of effort into something and share it with the world, only for someone else, or everyone else, to tell us that it is garbage, our emotional alarm system goes off and starts blaring, "You are in danger! You are in danger! Don't make any more garbage or you will die." But this instinctual sensitivity to social rejection is old biological technology developed for old environments. And thus, in our modern environment, it will often trigger false alarms when we aren't really in danger. Inspired by Mark Terrell's advice on how to deal with panic attacks, Mark Terrell of Uncommon Practitioners, love that YouTube channel, highly recommend it. Seemingly no relation to Ivan Terrell, coincidence. But inspired by Mark Terrell's advice on how to deal with panic attacks, I like to think of my emotional self as a huge grizzly bear friend that follows me around and that I call Mama Bear. Wherever I go, she goes. And whenever she detects danger, she loses it and starts roaring at the threat. ready to kill to protect me. But then I use my thinking mind to look around, see if I'm actually in any danger, and if not, I tell her, "Stand down, Mama Bear, stand down. I am not in any danger here. Thank you for your protection and your love, but you can stand down." I do this because, like Mark Terrell said in the video linked above, the emotional self takes cues from the thinking self. And if the thinking self is confident there is no danger here, then the emotional self will calm down because nature conserves energy and emotional outbursts require a lot of energy. When we first begin to pursue a higher calling, we will almost certainly fail hard for a long time and experience some form of social rejection, especially in this internet age. However, these failures are to be embraced and the social rejection expected because they both mean you have started your journey and you are on your way. You may fear failure, but you are the hero in this story, and heroes aren't fearless. They simply overcome their fear. Like Carl Jung wrote in the Red Book, you must endure the temptation of fear and doubt, and at the same time acknowledge to the bone that your fear is justified and your doubt is reasonable. How otherwise could it be a true temptation and a true overcoming? This brings me to the interpretation of the tarot cards themselves. So, keeping in mind these traditional and new ideas, here's some of my personal interpretations of each of the Aries tarot cards. The Emperor, Major Arcana number 4. In the Hermetic Kabbalah, the Emperor sits on the path between the second Sephirah Chokmah and the sixth Sephirah Tifereth. According to Dion Fortune, Chokmah is the radical force of change emanating from the first Sephirah Kether, while Tifereth represents our higher self or soul or holy guardian angel, and is a direct individualized reflection of Kether manifest in this world. That might sound like a bunch of gobbledygook. Also, I have here, Kether is God, Source, and Supreme Consciousness. So another way of putting this is that the Emperor is the path linking the force of God and the God within us, the Christ within us, the higher nature within us. The Emperor can represent the inspiring force of God, compelling your soul to a particular calling or action, your divine purpose. It is the promise of the Cosmic Father, who says, "If you, my divine child, choose to accept my call to adventure that I sound from deep within the core of your being, I will open the doors to my heavenly treasury and provide you with all of the strength, energy, and courage you will need to fulfill your destiny. With the power of God behind you, you will become a force of nature that can move mountains and part the sea. However, if you refuse my call and you reject my invitation to transformation, the doors to my treasury will remain closed and you will be on your own." When you pull this card, it is a good time to ask, what adventure am I being invited on right now? And would my soul support me and provide me strength on this adventure? Or would it see this adventure as a distraction away from my true path? Queen of Wands. The Queen of Wands represents watery fire, which can be interpreted as reflective action, amongst many other things. Joe Monteleone, the awesome teacher over at the Tarot Mysticism Academy, whose level 2 class inspired me to start this blog in the first place. Thank you, Joe. He associates the Queen cards with interpersonal one-on-one situations between you and someone else. This is compared to the King or Prince cards, which are more about mass communication or interactions between you and groups of people. So the interpersonal interactions of the Queen can manifest as a personal conversation between you and a friend, or as a spiritual conversation between your lower self and your higher self, because we are composed of multiple selves. And like Lon Milo Duquette said, there's a part of us that speaks, and there's a part of us that listens. So, at its core, the Queen of Wands can represent finding the divine sparks of soul around you and providing them with kindling on their journey to becoming a roaring fire. It is about motivating someone who is acting on their higher calling, whether that someone who needs motivation is yourself or someone else. To motivate someone else, you can do things like show up to an event that is meaningful to them, commission a piece of work or performance from them, or console them after they've experienced a rejection or failure, making sure to use that magical word, yet. To motivate yourself, you can treat yourself to an adventure that is in alignment with your higher calling that you know will inspire you. This can be attending an event like a conference or a festival, signing up for a class or a workshop, or reaching out for some one-on-one advice from someone who is currently doing something similar to what you dream of doing one day. Two of Wands. The Two of Wands is composed of 4 building blocks. Wands as fire, representing action and impulsivity. 2 as Hokmah, which is the zodiac, representing force and transformation. Mars, representing heroism and leadership. And Aries, representing courage and initiation. This overwhelmingly fiery card is bursting with power and ready to initiate radical change. It represents stepping up and taking action, regardless of what anyone else is doing, because it draws its strength directly from a higher power instead of its environment. It is a card of trailblazing leadership, but its leadership comes through leading by example instead of managing the team. So it's more about being a role model than being a boss. This card is less focused on the past or the future, and is more focused on doing what is right now. And it accepts that the future will work out however it works out. From a practical standpoint, it says, do what is right, not what is popular. From a spiritual standpoint, it says, thy will be done through me. When you pull this card, it is time to start sucking. Your mantra can be, anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Start racking up your failure count ASAP. If you are already following your calling, now is the time to start failing bigger. Like Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy talk about, shoot for a short-term goal that is 10 times bigger than what you think is possible. And then I have a link to where you can pre-order their new book, 10x is easier than 2x. I got to promote it because it's not out yet, and Dr. Benjamin Hardy sent me a galley copy for free, so that was really nice of him. But the whole idea behind the 10x is easier than 2x is that if you are looking to make a slight change in your life, there's tons of different ways you can do that, tons of different paths and options and ways to do that. However, if you're looking to radically change your life, there's fewer paths. So therefore, your actions, the actions to take become more clear because there's less paths to that huge transformation. So you can kind of associate that with the radical change of the Two of Wands. If you do not know your calling, take a guess, give that a shot, and see how you feel afterwards. Above all else, now is the time to take action. Three of Wands. The Three of Wands is composed of 4 building blocks. Wands as fire, representing action and impulsivity. 3 as Bina, or Saturn, representing form and restriction. The Sun, representing the higher self and awareness, and Aries, representing courage and initiation. In this card, we have a tension between Fire's energetic activity and Bina's restriction into form. Whereas the Two of Wands acts in the moment, the Three of Wands acts with time in mind. Using the awareness of the higher self that is beyond emotional needs and egotistical thoughts, it acknowledges the past, contemplates the future, and acts courageously in this moment to unite the two. One way this can play out is disciplined force. This concept is summed up by Gustave Flaubert's quote, "Be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work." And what I mean by that is disciplined force, as in maybe in order to express the higher calling you have inside you, in order to pursue that, you actually need to start saying no to more things. Maybe you need more discipline. Maybe you need to make it a daily habit and start turning down other activities that you would normally do so that you can free up the time to follow your higher calling. I heard a while ago that Saturn is like the parent that says no, and Jupiter is like the parent that says yes. So maybe this Three of Wands you can use as a way to ask yourself, what do I need to be saying no to right now so that I can better pursue my higher self, my higher calling, my passion? Back to the reading. Another way this card can play out is as force that destroys an existing form so that a new form can take its place. In the hero's journey, the protagonist must sacrifice their life of comfort in order to begin their journey into the unknown. In the Three of Wands, we find the strength required to self-immolate our existing form so that, like the phoenix, a new form, more aligned with our higher calling, can rise from our ashes. However, just as the phoenix is reborn as an egg or a hatchling, we too will initially emerge from our ashes as an incompetent child. But like the bold child, we must not be afraid to fall down. Instead, we must seek bigger and better failures as we develop the new skills, new attitudes, and new lifestyle of our new self. Four of Wands. The Four of Wands is composed of 4 building blocks. Wands as fire, representing action and impulsivity. 4 as Chesed, or Jupiter, representing organization and values. Venus, representing emotional needs and instinct. And Aries, representing courage and initiation. In this card, we have a complex combination of Fire's passionate energy, Hesed's organizational structure, Venus's instinctual emotional needs, and Aries's courage and initiation. To me, this card represents creating a system that both allows for expression of your higher self and divine purpose, while also tending to the emotional needs of you and those around you. So creating a system that allows for expression of your higher self and also tends to your emotional needs. And by system, I see the 4 a lot as home life. So helping to create a home that not only satiates everyone's needs, but also encourages them to strive for something greater than themselves. It can also represent injecting a spontaneous act of love or kindness into an area of your life that is otherwise structured and monotonous, like buying a gift or doing a favor for someone at home or at work. And I get that because 4 is about structure, organization, and can also be cold, can be stagnant, static when a form is too stuck together. So this card can also represent adding a little fire into that static form. In Dr. Benjamin Hardy's video on morning routines, He talks about Stanford psychologist B.J. Fogg's concept that design beats willpower. The idea is that if you want to change your behavior, redesign your environment so that the environment naturally draws the behavior out of you. So you don't need to use willpower because the environment is drawing it out of you. For example, if your higher self is whispering to you to become sober, then don't keep a bottle of wine in your fridge. Instead, remove all of the alcohol from your home. If you want to become a better guitarist, then don't store your guitar in a case tucked away in your closet. Instead, leave it on a stand or hung from the wall in your main living space so that it stares at you every day, ready to be played. It doesn't have to be about being sober or playing guitar. It could be if you want to write, then make sure that you have a desk that you're able to just sit down and start writing at. You don't have to clean it up every day. Same with like meditation. Make sure you have a meditation spot. Try to keep it clean. Try to make it so that if you have something you want to do, you eliminate any friction and all of the obstacles that prevent you from doing it. If you want to become a better partner, then set a daily or weekly recurring reminder on your phone to do something loving that day. The Four of Wands can represent this conscious redesign of your environment so that your desired behaviors are the easiest options available, and thus less willpower is needed on your path to becoming your higher self. Conclusion. To summarize, Aries is about being bold, taking initiative, and acting not without fear, but despite fear, because you are a hero, and that's what heroes do. It is about having the courage to accept your higher self's call to adventure. It is about embracing the fact that on your journey, like a child learning to ride a bike, you will probably suck a lot at first. You will probably suck for a long time. But the more you suck means the more room you have to grow. And you can't start growing until you start. Failure is not something to be avoided, but sought after, because it is how you learn and a signpost that you are on your way. Failure and social rejection may feel scary and dangerous, but that's just your primitive human, emotional, instinctual brain telling you, if you get rejected from the tribe, you will have to fight lions and bears by yourself and you will die. I can almost certainly promise you that creating a work of art that someone does not like will not lead you to fist fighting lions and bears by yourself. Almost promise that. Social rejection is an inevitability on the journey to becoming your higher self, especially in this day and age where there are so many people in this world. The thing you should fear far more than social rejection is dying without trying. Aries gives us the courage to do the thing that is scariest of all, to give an honest shot at fulfilling our destiny. And that's the article. I hope you found this useful. And if you did, I would appreciate it if you could like this video so that my content is more likely to be recommended by the YouTube algorithm. And I will be releasing a ton of content like this that is a combination between kind of modern self-development concepts and traditional esoteric occult concepts. So if you are interested in that, subscribe. And again, you can sign up for my newsletter, which will give you access to my free one-pager that describes all meanings of the 78 tarot cards. Happy Aries season, everyone, and may you be bold in your adventure ahead.